See what kind of potato harvest comes when you don't have any seed potatoes planted. This bucket contains our latest potato experiment, and today I get to harvest it. Guten gardening, everybody. Well, about 3 months ago, we started our latest potato experiment where we took some sprouts from some oversprouted seed potatoes, ones that we had saved from the previous potato harvest. We pulled the sprouts off and we planted just the sprouts in an attempt to answer the question, what would happen if you planted just a sprout and not a seed potato itself? And we've already learned a bunch from this experiment. The first thing we learned was that the seed potatoes themselves, once we remove those oversprouted parts, would be just fine. They would continue to grow from the other eyes on the potato, continue that chitting process, and those could be planted. And we also learned pretty quickly from that time of planting that these potatoes were going to be able to go through the entire life cycle. We've already seen them flower. We just don't know how big the potatoes underneath are going to be. Now, this is only a 3.5 gallon bucket, so it's not the biggest container out there, but I'm still hopeful that the potatoes we got inside are going to be at least big enough to make this worthwhile. And it is going to be interesting because I know if you're like me, you have had tons of potatoes oversprout and you're trying to figure out, well, what can I do with these? We do know from planting some really old fingerling seed potatoes that had sprouts that were 12, 15, 18 inches long, that we can still get potatoes from some of those really overly sprouted seed potatoes. But this is a whole different animal. So without further ado, let's get into this container and see what we've got going on and see what kind of potato harvest comes when you don't have any seed potatoes planted. Now, I've always been of a firm belief that the seed potato itself was incredibly important, especially initially at least, to feeding the plant as it's getting going with growing and developing. And I do understand that as the plant gets the green leaves on it, it starts working through photosynthesis. But just how important is that seed potato? Of course, we did get these sprouts from seed potatoes. It's just we didn't plant the seed potato itself. Now, we're in a couple of different stages here. This potato, this particular stem or sprout here has definitely died back. This one has a little bit of green left on it. And this one, I would say, has the most green left on it. But I don't want to leave this any longer in here. While I was going on vacation, we definitely had quite a bit of rain. So these have been watered maybe a little bit more than I would have liked toward the end of their growing period. Okay, I feel the first potato right here. And there are a couple of different varieties of potatoes in here. But again, not a single seed potato. This is a yellow potato, whatever we've got growing here. Okay. The potato in here, look, I'm holding you off. The potato in here is a pretty nice size. Take a look at this. That's awesome. Can you tell what type of potato this is just from the appearance, the shape of it? This is one of those baking potatoes, a russet potato. It looks like there's a little bit of damage right here, but that's a great size. Actually, I've struggled with russet potatoes in the past, and the fact that the first one to come out of here was that size is pretty amazing to me. The first potato I harvest is this beautiful russet. All right, let's get down in here. Let's see if I'm trying not to dump this out. I'm just digging around in here. I believe, oh, there we go. That is definitely not a russet potato. That looks more like a Yukon gold potato right there. So two different varieties right here. So this is a much smaller potato coming out of here. You know, one thing I'm noticing right away is there's actually a pretty substantial amount of root structure down in here. And again, all of this had to develop. I didn't wait at all from the time I pulled the stem off. I just put it right down in this mix, and I feel another nice potato right here. Again, I think this is another one of our russets. Yeah, absolutely. So about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller, but two solid russets. If I'm being perfectly honest, I wasn't sure in terms of the size of the results of these potatoes at all. I kind of figured they'd be a good bit smaller, but those first two have been pretty substantial in terms of the russets. Now, how many more we're going to get? That is not a russet. How many more we're going to get out of here that are that size? I don't know. That looks like a baby russet right there. All right, let's pull off to, let me turn this around a little bit. Let's pull off to this side. There we go. I think this is the one where I didn't think it had survived. I thought there was another part to this stem that had died back, but then it sent off this shoot. And you can see the little baby potatoes right on here, but I don't think that would have gone much farther. There we go. Yeah, the little Yukon Golds here, not substantial in size. So the Russet, for whatever reason, it only gave me 2, but they were definitely 2 bigger potatoes. Okay, I'm gonna throw off some more of this mix, get it out of the way in here. Yep, there's another one right down in here. So I planted these as deeply as I could. There was probably an inch or so peeking up from the bottom at time of planting, but they were really long. They were a good foot. Oh, there's a, oh no, that's not one. They were a good foot long at least, the sprouts. And so I had to really plant them down in there. So the potatoes themselves are pretty far down, as far down as you can get in this bucket. Okay, I've saved this third one, which is the one that had the most life, I guess, or it's the biggest one. I've saved it till last. Let's see what I had attached. Okay, so this is another Russet. So apparently, I thought I had planted a Magic Molly in here. Apparently, I planted 2 Russets in here. Well, that happens sometimes, I guess. Well, and that's the only one attached there. Okay, so a 3.5 gallon bucket. Just working my hands through here to make sure I got everything. Let's take a look at the results. Our Russets, got 3 decent sized Russets. I got some smaller Yukon Golds, and then one, I would say, golf ball sized Yukon Gold potato. This, the Russets, actually look pretty good to me. That is not too shabby, but 3 plants, and these are the results. So size-wise, I would say for us, and again, I've struggled with Russet potatoes getting much size at all. So size-wise, the size of the Russets, I'm not gonna complain about one bit. In terms of overall production, it's a smaller bucket. Maybe with a bigger bucket, I could have done better. It's not the same, is definitely not the same as what we've seen in terms of plant production with our organic seed potatoes, or even the potatoes that we've saved as seed potatoes from previous seasons. So it's a successful experiment. We've learned something. It's a small sample size, and I kind of want to experiment around. I definitely have more potatoes that are oversprouted. I want to experiment more with this. I definitely, if I'm talking about what I'm going to depend on for production, I'm not going to depend on just the sprout. I'm going to depend on high quality seed potatoes. By the way, we do have a link to 5% off any orders from Wood Prairie Family Farm, so check out that link in the description. But I'm definitely going to be dependent on what I know for sure works for my bigger crops, which would be those good quality seed potatoes and not just the sprouts. But hey, this is something I think we can experiment more with, and I know at least a couple of people in our community who had some oversprouted potatoes who were growing them this season, and I'd love to hear how that worked out if you're one of those folks. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this potato experiment video. We have a whole bunch more potatoes growing here, and I'm about to plant our fall potatoes as well, so we should have a late harvest coming in as well. Hey, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.